On April 3, 1922, Doris Marianne Kabeloff was born in Cincinnati, Ohio. Her parents were German, Alma Sophia Weltz, a housewife, and Friedrich Wilhelm von Kabeloff, a music educator and choir conductor. Out of the three children, Doris was the youngest. Her brother Paul was a few years older than her, and her brother Richard passed away before she was born. Grandson Ryan Melcher. Even though Doris Day's grandson isn't well known, people have always been interested in his relationship with the iconic actress. He's finally talking about something that followers have long assumed at the age of 41. His disclosure illuminates a hitherto unknown aspect of Doris Day, including his personal life and connection with his famous grandmother. Doris was regarded as America's darling for many years. Her radiant personality, brilliant smile, and indisputable skill made her a cherished figure. Her final years, however, were mysterious behind the scenes. Ryan Melcher, her grandson, has recently disclosed information on their strained relationship, claiming that he was kept apart from his grandma for more than 14 years. Ryan claims that after the death of Doris's only son, Terry Melcher, in 2004, Bob Bashara, her business manager, restricted access to her and prevented him from getting back in touch. Many have questioned if Doris meant to isolate herself or whether others around her were manipulating her situation in light of Ryan's emotional disclosure. As admirers consider this startling assertion, concerns about celebrity, familial ties, and the unseen hardships of Hollywood's most prominent actors surface. Let's examine his narrative more detail and see why everyone's talking. Challenges Doris faced. Doris had difficulties at a young age since she was raised in a low-income family during the Great Depression. Young Doris was profoundly impacted by the troubled marriage of her parents, which ultimately resulted in their divorce, an unusual event at the time. Her interests would shape her future in dancing and music, which she found comfort in despite these challenges. Doris had an innate gift for performing at an early age, and her mother, Alma, supported her musical endeavors. By the time she was in her early teens, she was working hard to become a professional dancer. But destiny had other ideas. Her dreams of becoming a dancer were suddenly dashed in 1937 when she suffered a broken leg in a terrible vehicle accident. After being confined to bed for months, Doris found solace in the radio, listening to well-known band vocalists and developing a new love for music. She started vocal training because she was determined to advance and quickly showed that she had a fantastic aptitude for singing. By the late 1930s, she'd started playing with local bands when local musicians had noticed her rich, expressive voice. She overcame personal obstacles and laid the groundwork for a career that would make her one of Hollywood's most adored celebrities, thanks to her early experiences. A tragic accident. Doris received free dancing lessons at 12 after winning a dance competition by standing on her hands for almost 3 hours. This triumph demonstrated her tenacity and fortitude, but her hopes of becoming a professional dancer were dashed when she was 14 years old and suffered a broken leg in a devastating automobile accident. Despite many operations and the doctor's consideration of amputation, she spent more than a year in bed. Doris turned to music for comfort throughout her drawn-out, agonizing recuperation. The silky, expressive voices of Ella Fitzgerald and Benny Goodman enthralled her as she listened to the radio for hours. She started singing along to her favorite songs when her mother encouraged her, and she soon found she had a hidden ability. She began taking vocal lessons with local instructor Grace Rain to pass the time and improve her mood, and she soon realized how talented she was. After working with Rain to improve her technique, Doris's voice became powerful enough for professional performances. What started as a coping mechanism quickly turned into a new obsession. She began singing with local bands at 16, which launched her career and made her one of the most recognizable performers ever. Her vocal talent. Doris began singing during this immobility time, drawing influence from Ella Fitzgerald's songs. Alma signed her kid up for singing lessons with Grace Rain after seeing how talented her daughter was. Doris's path in music was paved by Grace's early recognition of her extraordinary talent. Doris started working as a professional entertainer at 15, earning $5 a night at a nearby Chinese restaurant. Band leader Barney Rapp saw her one night while performing at a local nightclub. After being impressed by her voice, Rapp wanted her to be his female singer. However, since she was too young to act in adult places, Doris had to pose as an 18-year-old, which was evidence of her will to take advantage of chances. Stage name Doris Day. Inspired by her performance of the song Day After Day, Rapp suggested that Doris take on the stage name Doris Day in 1939 when she was only 17 years old. She was apprehensive initially, but eventually got used to the term, which would soon represent Hollywood fame. A significant turning point in Doris Day's career occurred when she joined Les Brown's band on March 15, 1940, at barely 18. She overcame her initial stage nervousness and won the lead singer role after impressing the bandleader with her performance of Embraceable You. Both personal tragedies and accomplishments characterized her tenure with the band. While on tour with the band in 1941, Doris learned the heartbreaking news that her brother Paul had died in a car accident. Despite her anguish, she decided to perform that evening, and her passionate performance brought the crowd to tears. Her tenacity distinguished her career. Rising Star. Sentimental Journey, a song that struck a deep chord with troops returning from World War II, was Doris's first massive success in 1945. Interestingly, she recorded the song while suffering from a cold, giving her voice a characteristically husky tone. Her reputation as a budding star was cemented when the song sold over 1 million copies in its first year. Doris's passionate performance and the song's sentimental lyrics resonated with a country ready to move beyond years of conflict. Played at dance halls and on radio stations across the country, it became an anthem of homecoming. She was widely praised for her natural ability to express emotions through song, distinguishing her from other singers of the period. After Sentimental Journey's popularity, Doris became one of the music industry's most sought-after singers. She produced more successes, such as My Dreams Are Getting Better All the Time, while recording with Les Brown's band. Hollywood quickly took notice of her rising fame, which led to an acting career that would make her one of the most adored performers of the 20th century. Sentimental Journey, however, remained one of her most beloved and iconic songs throughout it all. Her solo career. Doris signed a 7-year, $1 million contract with Columbia Records in 1947, marking the beginning of her solo career. This was an extraordinary agreement for a female performer. She first struggled with her chosen tunes, considering them drab and outdated. She recorded It's Magic, a huge success that sold over 2 million copies and earned her an Oscar nomination after arguing for more modern material. To the amazement of the studio audience, she recorded the song in a single take. This achievement established Doris as one of the most popular vocalists of her day and demonstrated that her taste in music was as keen as her vocal ability. Her journey from a well-known singer to a Hollywood celebrity began when It's Magic appeared in her first movie, Romance on the High Seas, in 1948. Her ability to express intense emotion was shown by the song's love lyrics and sweeping melody, making her popular among music and filmgoers. Doris became the top female recording artist for Columbia Records after this victory, and she continued to produce successes that reached the top of the charts. Because of her flexibility, she performed well in various musical genres, including pop ballads and large bands, solidifying her place as one of her time's most lasting and influential voices. Her acting debut. Her musical breakthrough gave her access to Hollywood. She was suggested for the movie Romance on the High Sea in 1948 by composers Jules Stein and Sammy Cahn. Director Michael Curtis selected Doris for the lead role despite her lack of acting experience, calling her the most perfect girl I've ever seen. The film's success launched Doris's storied film career, demonstrating that her charisma and charm were not limited to the recording studio. Doris performed in popular musicals throughout the 1950s, such as The Pajama Game in 1957 and Calamity Jane in 1953. She played the fearless frontierswoman in Calamity Jane with such vigor and genuineness that she broke a rib while doing many stunts. With almost $37 million, the movie was a box office success and cemented Doris's status as a financially stable leading woman. She became popular among audiences because of her ability to combine humor, song, and genuine passion. Her flexibility was further shown in The Pajama Game, which was based on the Broadway musical and solidified her status as one of Hollywood's most adored performers. As the decade passed, she quickly moved into more complex parts, demonstrating her continued popularity. Calamity Jane. Doris Day played a fearless, vivacious frontierswoman in Calamity Jane, pulling off several stunts and fracturing a rib during shooting. Her passionate performance and contagious charisma brought the character to life, making the movie one of her favorite parts. The movie solidified her status as a major Hollywood star with a box office total of almost $37 million. After her victory, Doris demonstrated her versatility in the 1957 adaptation of the popular Broadway musical The Pajama Game. She showcased her dancing abilities, comic timing, and singing prowess in the movie. The film's lively dancing and catchy songs made it another hit, grossing $5 million at the box office. More significantly, it demonstrated her ability to excel in serious and humorous musical parts, solidifying her position as a leading woman in Hollywood. Her career took a significant turn with these movies, which showed that she could enthrall viewers in various genres. Doris Day's smooth shift into romantic comedies in the late 1950s and early 1960s broadened her repertoire and cemented her status as one of the most adored actresses of the time. Her troubled relationships. Despite being America's darling, Doris Day's private life was far from idyllic. She suffered grief, betrayal, and a series of problematic relationships that often left her feeling helpless in her own life, all behind her stunning smile and easy charm on film. A cycle of suffering began when she married trombonist Al Jordan for the first time at 17. Doris thought she'd discovered love, even if her mother disagreed. But the truth was far more sinister. Jordan was viciously aggressive, possessive, and envious. As the mental and physical suffering intensified, horrific events occurred, such as a vicious assault during her pregnancy with Terry, their only child. Doris found the strength to leave, fearing for her life, and shortly after Terry was born, she filed for divorce. Her second marriage to George Weidler, a musician, gave her optimism but fell apart due to the strain of her rising stardom. Their marriage dissolved in less than a year because Weidler was resentful of her achievements. Deep emotional wounds were left by these early encounters, which influenced Doris's view of love and trust. Despite being loved by millions, she had trouble finding long-term happiness in her personal life and often put her faith in the wrong people, a regrettable trend that would endure for decades. Tolerated domestic violence. A cycle of suffering began when she married trombonist Al Jordan for the first time at 17. Despite her mother's adamant protests, Doris fell for what she thought was love. But the truth was far more diabolical. Jordan was physically aggressive, possessive, and jealous. The day after their wedding, he struck her for the first time. The violence intensified after that. Jordan's anger got uncontrolled as he accused Doris of cheating repeatedly. Jordan's brutal attacks. One of Jordan's most vicious assaults on Doris occurred when she was expecting their only child, Terry. He'd beaten her so severely that she almost miscarried after she refused to get the abortion he had desired. He threatened to murder them both and drove her to a remote area when she was in her 8th month of pregnancy. Doris got away because of her fast thinking and survival instincts. Despite giving birth to a healthy kid in February 1942, she realized she could not continue in the marriage since the event left her permanently damaged. She never looked back after filing for divorce. However, Jordan's injuries to her were permanent. Doris would later acknowledge that she was constantly reminded of that horrible night whenever she sat comfortably in the front seat of a vehicle after that day. Her second marriage. Her second marriage to George Weidler, a musician, seemed to be a new beginning. His bandmates had introduced them, and he seemed to provide the camaraderie she desperately needed. However, Weidler became aloof and chilly soon after their 1946 wedding. Weidler's admission that he couldn't manage to marry someone whose reputation eclipsed his own was the last straw. Their marriage terminated after 8 months. Doris was heartbroken. Sadness continues. Then Martin Melcher arrived, and he would alter her life in ways she never would have thought possible. He took over as her manager and adopted her son, Terry, giving the impression that he was loyal. Unaware of the deceit taking on behind the scenes, she put all of her faith in him for over 20 years. Doris was unaware that Melcher and his business partner, Jerome Rosenthal, were surreptitiously mismanaging her money, funneling her profits into dubious business endeavors and unsuccessful investments. Her wealth was vanishing, valued at over $150 million today. The treachery didn't end there either. Broken and betrayed. Doris learned the truth about the lie when Melcher passed away unexpectedly in 1968. She discovered that in addition to leaving her completely broke, Melcher had surreptitiously enrolled her in a television program called The Doris Day Show without her permission. Since it was the only option to settle the enormous obligations he had left behind, she was forced to fulfill the promise. In 1974, after a protracted court struggle, she was granted $22 million in damages by Rosenthal. However, she only collected a small portion of that sum because of insurance disputes. The emotional harm was irreversible, however. Once at the height of her Hollywood glory, Doris was left devastated and deceived by the man she trusted most. Her animal welfare. Animal welfare became Doris Day's primary focus as her Hollywood career faded. Although she'd always loved animals, her commitment was strengthened by a painful event in her early years. She had a puppy called Tiny when she was a little kid, and he was tragically struck by a vehicle. Doris was heartbroken. Her sense of powerlessness persisted, and as she got older, she made a lifelong commitment to animal protection. Refused to turn a blind eye. Doris refused to ignore the suffering of animals, even when she was a Hollywood star. She was horrified by the abuse of animals on set while shooting The Man Who Knew Too Much in Morocco. Until something was done, she wouldn't keep working. Her influence and unshakable moral compass were evident in how the animals and her requests were treated. Doris Day Pet Foundation. In 1978, her devotion led to the establishment of the Doris Day Pet Foundation. What started as a modest effort to aid local rescues swiftly became a more significant movement. Later, the organization changed its name to the Doris Day Animal Foundation and began addressing more general concerns, such as spaying and neutering initiatives to stop the overpopulation of pets. Launching a campaign. She started the World Spay Day campaign in 1995 to increase public awareness of the value of spaying and neutering pets. Millions of animal lives were improved as it spread over 70 nations. Doris established a shelter for needy animals at her Carmel Valley, California house. She provided a secure haven for many pets that she rescued. She often had 30 dogs at once, all receiving their due affection and attention. Her influence continues. Even though Doris Day left Hollywood, her impact on the animal protection movement grew more assertive. She used her popularity to raise awareness of the essential topic, advocating for legislative reforms, and spoke against animal abuse. Even after she passed, Doris kept putting her time and money into animal protection. A new album in 2011. She shocked everyone by releasing her new album, My Heart, in 2011 at age 89. Her late son Terry wrote several previously recorded songs on the CD. Due to the economic success of the personal record, Doris became the oldest artist in the UK to have a new album in the top 10. Despite her success, she avoided interviews and public appearances since she was very private. She made her last public appearance on her 97th birthday in 2019 and thanked her followers for carrying on her goal. Her death occurred quietly at home a few weeks later. Champion for the voiceless. Her influence went much beyond Hollywood. She spoke for the voiceless and was more than a singer and actress. Although her Golden Globe and contagious smile are what many remember her for, those who knew her well realized that her most significant contribution was not to the movie industry, but instead to the lives of the innumerable animals she rescued. However, a cloud hung over Doris's latter years, even as she dedicated herself to the cause that was most important to her. Behind the scenes, a serious family conflict was developing that would completely cut off her sole grandson, Ryan Melcher, from her life. And that heartbreaking reality became apparent after Doris Day's death. a shock for her grandson. Doris Day's last years should have been pleasant and meaningful with relatives and the animals she loved by her side. However, something disturbing was going on underneath the idyllic Carmel Valley lifestyle. For more than 14 years, Ryan Melcher, her sole grandchild, who had admired his grandmother from a distance, was completely excluded from her life. Suspicions confirmed. When Doris died in 2019, the devastating reality came out. Like everyone else, Ryan found out about her passing on Facebook. Ryan's agonizing realization validated his long-held suspicion that someone had been preventing him from seeing his grandma. The fractured relationship. After Terry Melcher, Doris's only child, passed away in 2004, the problem started. Terry, a well-known music producer, has always been a part of his mother's life. Despite their relationship's ups and downs, they had a strong bond. Since Terry was no longer around to fill the vacuum created by his death, Ryan and Doris's relationship deteriorated. Rebuild what had been lost. Doris extended an olive branch to reconnect with Ryan by inviting him to supper shortly after Terry's passing. Since his parents' divorce in 1997, when his relationship with Doris had soured, Ryan had been waiting for this moment. The opportunity to restore what had been lost was presented by this dinner invitation. Bob Bashara, the manager. However, Bob Bashara intervened before Ryan could even visit his grandma. Ryan was invited to a private meeting at the Cypress Inn, a boutique hotel in Carmel that Doris co-owned by Bashara, her business manager. "Why do you want to see Doris?" was the icy, calculating inquiry Ryan had to answer. Ryan remembered his shocking and perplexing reaction. "Because she's my grandma." Once celebrated, now isolated. However, the reaction he got was disastrous. Bashara told him he would not be permitted to visit her. He said that Ryan's parents and previous family disputes were to blame. The encounter and Ryan's ability to see his grandma ended. Efforts to reestablish contact throughout the years were greeted with silence. According to reports, Bashara had increased his control over Doris's life by erecting security gates surrounding her house and limiting who might enter. After spending decades letting fans and animals into her heart, the once hospitable celebrity was utterly alone. Doris Day passes. Ryan had accepted that he would never be able to say goodbye to Doris when she died in 2019 at age 97, but he was troubled by the loss of their years. Ryan revealed the devastating reality of their separation in a Facebook post in the days after her passing, breaking his silence. The public, who had always seen Doris as a devoted, family-oriented lady, found resonance in his remarks. Receive the news on social media. To all those who have asked, I received the news of my grandmother's passing, like most of you, on social media. I was not permitted to see my grandmother for 14 years, thanks to her manager, Bob Bashara, who also handled her estate and controlled access to her life. There's so much more to the story, but it's a heartbreaking truth I have to live with. The news shocked Doris Day's faithful followers. How was it possible to keep a kind lady from visiting her grandson? And why has nobody raised the issue before? Taken advantage of her trust. For his part, Bashara denied any misconduct. He said that Ryan had rejected many efforts to get back in touch with Doris. He cited a previous statement Ryan made on his website, requesting that people refrain from contacting him about Hollywood or his well-known grandmother. However, many people had doubts. Some speculated that Doris, famous for her intense need for seclusion, would have desired to withdraw from society. Others, on the other hand, believed that individuals in her immediate vicinity had exploited her trust by regulating her relationships and ensuring that only a few could reach her. Final years marked by isolation. Whatever the truth, one thing is sure. One of the most adored figures in American history, Doris Day, lived out her last years without ever meeting her only grandchild. And Ryan was left with nothing but unresolved questions and a profound feeling of grief once she left. Doris Day's grandson, who was 41 then, acknowledged what many had long suspected. His grandmother's last years were not as tranquil as they seemed. For many years, the world saw Doris as the epitome of joy, a celebrity whose upbeat demeanor and sincere performances delighted millions. However, an air of mystery persisted after her death due to the agonizing reality of her latter years, which were characterized by seclusion, restricted access, and unresolved questions. Reflecting on his loss. Ryan Melcher kept thinking about his time with his grandma, often wondering whether she had ever asked him why he'd stopped going. Had those familial links been severed, or had she been kept in the dark? Some contend that Ryan's account of events, such as Carly Cullen Walters, Doris's longtime publicist, is incomplete. According to Walters, attempts had been made to get Ryan and Doris back together, especially around her 90th birthday in 2014. But Ryan had opted to keep a distance. However, some family members think Doris's manager had far more influence over her life than most people understood. Whoever was at fault, the outcome was always the same. Doris Day and her grandson were kept apart, and the chance for a reunion was eternally gone. Commitment to animal welfare. Beyond the familial strife, Doris's steadfast dedication to animal welfare characterized her latter years. She advocated for spay and neuter programs, tended to rescue dogs, and spent her days caring for the animals on her 11-acre ranch. To devote her time to a cause she believed in, she had long ago abandoned the gloss and glamour of Hollywood. A simple way of life. She was also renowned for living a modest and frugal life. Even though Doris was a Hollywood icon, she lived a simple life, using paper plates for food and maintaining a washing machine in her bedroom. She declined the Presidential Medal of Freedom and the Kennedy Center honors, never seeking fame or recognition. Dark side of fame. Even though Doris decided to leave the limelight, her life story and the mysteries surrounding her final years still captivate historians and admirers. Although her passing in 2019 signaled the end of an era, it also sparked a new discussion about the negative aspects of celebrity. Legacy remains untouchable. Nevertheless, Doris Day's legacy will always be indestructible. She was a force to be reckoned with, not merely a singer or an actor. She was a lady who repeatedly triumphed over heartache against the odds. Her tale serves as a reminder that even the most brilliant people may have dark sides hiding beneath them. It's one of tenacity, love, and mystery. If you've watched the video till here, that means you've enjoyed the video. Subscribe. Don't forget to turn on the notifications bell icon